Awesome. Good morning. Welcome to the Valuable Mind podcast. So super excited to have Julian Schrenzel with us this morning. This is going to be very, very unique of a podcast and an interview style because Julian specifically has been, he's actually been a business owner for over 16 years, has a very unique background, several different niches and backgrounds and industries that actually have he's woven together, which is going to be very interesting to talk about. But he knows people. He's been an active recruiter and active business owner for this many years, and by the math, he survived. He survived 2008, survived COVID, and I'm sure many other things. Julian, I'm super excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. It's good to be on your podcast.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I definitely didn't want to spoil it. So tell us your background, how we kind of went from where you started to where you are now.
Sure. What life goes exactly as one expected it to go in every sense of the way. It's not that way. And I've always kind of just done what I loved and then figured out what made sense and how to apply it to life in a way that makes, value. So I started out in arts and entertainment, music. I have a bachelor's in vocal performance. I was an actor, traveled around the country, lived in New York and other places as a performer. And then my father actually had the recruiting company. And when I was on shows in the early days, when I just started doing this kind of work, he would have me doing the little odds and end things, interviewing candidates or uploading resumes to a system or whatever have you. And I do that on my off time. And then as time went on and I continued doing performing and then getting farther into doing more and more with recruiting, I met my wife and we actually met on a musical on Guys and Dolls in Georgia. And we both moved back to New York and then back to Seattle. And when we got married, neither of us wanted to live out of a suitcase and travel all over the place constantly. So we became, the theater became more of an avocation and the recruiting company started to become more of a thing. But I also, as a theater person, got a lot into improvisation and was interested in the connection between improvisation and the organizational development. And I actually started a company that uses improvisation and applies it to the business and real world life communication and collaboration and that such. And so I did that. So I just kind of created work from the stuff that I loved and I did well. And that brought me to where I am now, which is running DyNexus Recruiting and Staffing, and also still doing theater and music and a little bit of everything, but mostly the recruiting these days, or
doing
staffing
what
these
you
days.
doing what you love, and that's super crucial. And it started like that, which is awesome, and you never lost it. That's super important. Speak
Yeah.
to how you implemented. You said it just briefly, but speak to like how you implemented improv into into the business world. How did you do that? Like, what did that look kind of? What's that like?
Well, I found improv when I lived in New York, and I really enjoyed it. Um, I liked performing it, but it wasn't necessarily the performance that drove me or that attracted me to the craft of improvisation. Um, so when I got back to Seattle, there was an organization called the Seattle Free School, which is a no-profit organization where people anywhere from someone off the street to some grandmother of someone to a Microsoft executive to whatever would come to Seattle Free School to learn anything from basket weaving to computer skills to uh, improvisation to music to whatever. Getting your Irish citizenship was one of the classes I remember them having. But anyway, I decided, what do I know? So I thought I wanted to put my skills to use and kind of figure out where I was going. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to do something voluntary, and I just put together. I've been doing improv, so I think I'm going to put something together for my improv friends. So I decided to do the class with Free School, and I put out to all my improv friends and theater friends, "Hey, I'm going to do this class. You guys should come." And as it turns out, the class was full, but it was full of like nobody I knew. So none of my friends came, but everybody else did. And so it was really scary because I was expecting to have theater people, artists, coming so that they had this basic fundamental understanding of what we were doing. I didn't expect it would be like a grandma and a Microsoft exec and a guy that was sleeping on the corner. Like literally, that's what it was. And there was a full group of people, the most eclectic group you ever seen. And I did what I could. Like I knew what I had, and I said, I have no idea how to teach these people improv who've never acted before. But I just did what I did, and it actually turned out to be a lot of fun. And on the fly, I was able to be able to find ways to make it relevant for that person who doesn't have a home and the executive at Microsoft at the same time. And I started doing so. I did another one, and that was full and successful. And I did another, and then I started going around to nonprofits and churches and schools and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing, and I want to bring it to you." And I'll so I made a little hat, a little top hat. My wife made this little paper top hat that said Improv Alive on it, and it had my logo and stuff. That's the company. And I put it out, and people would like put money in the hat. So it's like I'll just make a little money out of it and make it a thing that I can do and collect some money. I have something to play with on the weekend, a little bit of money to take go out to take my family on a date or something. And did
Yeah.
that for a while. And things started catching on because when people are coming to these free things, they would usually be part of like a company or an organization. They're like, we loved this and we really want you to come in and do it some more. So, I ended up coming in to like Expedia. And at that time, I'm like, all right, passing around a hat at a corporation seems silly. So I incorporated it, I put it into an LLC and turned it into a company. And then I started getting calls from, I worked with Microsoft, Amazon, Expedia, banks, um, all of like the biggest companies you can think of, Boeing, Washington, University of Washington. So I started just working
Wow.
with dozens and dozens of the biggest companies that I know and traveling around the country for those. And that's kind of how that all began. And it is the fundamentals around like, how do I use that improv and performance-based stuff here today as a business owner and a business leader in recruiting and staffing of accounting technology people. It all kind of, when you look back on it, it all connects because having, the fundamentals of human communication, the ability to be effective in speaking off the cuff, the ability to listen actively and respond relevantly, the ability to feel comfortable in uncomfortable environments is something that every business leader, every person who leads a group of people, those are the primary skills you have to have. They're the soft skills. And those are skills that I really was able to hone a lot through the years of learning and then the years of teaching. So that's kind of how it all led to led to here from there.
Wow. And it started from a passion because most people they're put into high pressure situations to where they're molded into better improv or are basically able to respond and handle a lot better. It's different situations basically through the fire. But for you, it started as like more of a pleasant like thing the passion was fueling it because others it's
Yeah,
something you're avoiding.
right, right. Yeah, I was conditioned to have it be a positive experience rather than something to dread.
Hmm.
So I like it. I'll go to conferences and I can present or teach or lead things. And I really, really, I actually, that's my favorite part of all that I do, going and doing those kind of things. And it's fun because that's the stuff that really moves the needle for a business owner. It's those things that generally like build relationships and win the trust of prospects is when you can get out in front of them face to face and teach something and they see that you're a leader and you know something and you're willing to step out and give of your time and your efforts and energies and people will respect that in a way that you don't when you like just meet someone on LinkedIn and just trust that they're good at what they do or they can bring value.
And that's the value is yeah the person to person, the belly to belly as they used to say, on stage or that close interaction with people. That's the impact that is uh, so it's like the impact that is the most real or rich. is what like the word I'm looking for.
Hmm.
Something that stays with you for a long time. And so that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, thanks.
I've seen that too a few times. But now we're kind of on the part of DyNexus and where that started, because obviously is you're setting a second business now officially, but been running for 16 years. So
Right.
tell us more about DyNexus and what you guys are focused on.
Yeah. So I haven't been the business owner for 16 years. I own this company for the last 5 years, but my dad started it. And my father was a CIO. He worked for a big investment bank, and worked in technology as a developer to start, but then he moved into C-level and kind of organizational technical leadership of companies. Um, he was kind of burnt out on the corporate environment and wanted to try something totally new. So he went in and his good buddy had a recruiting company. And he went in recruiting, and usually recruiting is kind of a boiler room kind of thing. It's the churn and burn. It's the hamster wheel. The faster you run your hamster wheel, the more money you make, kind of thing. And he really didn't like that. The model of recruiting before we started was, if you ever worked with recruiters, you're aware of this. A recruiter will work for a company and find people, and if they place someone, then the company pays them. But if they don't place someone, the company doesn't pay them. So the company hires several recruiters, and the recruiters all work as fast as they can, and the one that get hired gets paid, and the rest of them walk away for the next thing. So what that creates on the recruiting side is recruiting companies who have 50, 60 clients, and they're sending the same resume to all of them because it's a numbers game, because there's no skin in it. It's not like the better you do, the more you'll get paid. It's the faster you do, the more you get paid. And it doesn't have to be quality, because you can get lucky and find a good person, and you can get lucky and find a bad person. But the more people you find, whether they're good or bad, the higher your chances are you're going to get the placements. So the model for recruiting is set on it's all quantity at the expense, and it doesn't matter about quality. It's at a total expense of quality that you just run quantity as quickly as you can. Hence the boiler room kind of feel of like the churn and burn. You got to run as quick as you can, chuck resumes at the wall as quick as you can. It doesn't matter if they have a heartbeat or whatever. Um, he got really tired of it all of a sudden. He's like, this is not what I left CIO for. So he went out and said, you know what? At the time, the only people who were doing retained recruiting, which is people who get paid up front to do the recruiting and then they guarantee the placement and the company pays them for it, and they're the only company working on it. At that time, it was only executive placement people, only people finding CIOs, CFOs, CEOs, executive people, and the white glove, really fancy companies that do this stuff. Everybody else that found everything else were just doing it. They were all like a dog trying to get the bone. So my dad said, you know what? Why can't we have the executive recruiter model for the average, for finding the average worker, the average professional? And his response from the world basically was, you can't do that because that's not the way it's done. And my dad is and I are similar in that, we look outside the box. We're not taking how it's been as an answer.
Right.
So he started this company on the foundation of, hey, we're going to do this executive recruiting, but we're going to do it for regular people. And so from that time, that was 1997 that started up until now, that's the only kind of recruiting we do. And while the company has morphed in many ways, the cornerstone of doing recruiting on a retained basis is something that I've held on to because it sets us apart. It's what makes us us, and not the Walmart of recruiting and not the Costco of recruiting, but we are ourselves. And we can do great work that way. It allows me to project the money. If I know I'm going to get paid for something, I can allocate the money to my people. And if I know I'm not competing against other recruiters who are doing crappy work really fast, then I know my people can afford to slow down and do really good work and make the right placement. And so people find that our placements stick better. So we have a better guarantee. It's simply longer. And it is because I can mathematically figure out how long can I make this guarantee and still make a reasonable amount of money. And as it turns out, I can do it a lot better than everybody else because everybody else can't project that stuff. So they have to pad their bottom line for the worst case scenario, whereas
Yeah.
I don't for that reason. So
Amazing. That's exactly how it sets you apart. Wow. Yeah, my recruiting, I've been in it for only about 9 years. And one company I was working with, it was a total, yeah, boiler room. It was just volume at scale, as many as you can. Do you have a heartbeat? Perfect. And let's bring you, let's bring you in. And that was my interim. Like that was like just what I was taught and how we just let them in, and then they'll find a place maybe. And the second company I was working with, and when we got better and started saying no, and I had control, and I was saying no, and I would still see other groups that would actually say yes, and it was actually funny. It was kind of a funny joke. I said no to one candidate and went over to another. I'm like, actually, talk to these people, and they took him, and that person lasted 2 months. 2 months. It didn't go anywhere, and it's like that the growth of being able to. We want them to succeed. We want them to have a placement, but if it's for not, what kind of win is that? And it's what I learned is, gosh, it's like who you hire, but it's really who you don't hire that
Mm,
is so, it's monumental, and it can affect a business. It can affect, so many things versus, yeah, just, because of just going after the placement or going, just to get the money. And it's not fulfilling like that. So I totally agree with that method. That's amazing.
mm, hmm. That's
Wow.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. You've been there.
For sure. Seen it. Now, and obviously, yeah, there were bumps in the road. What are some of the challenges though that DyNexus is currently like focusing on right now?
I think that the economy, with it being so unpredictable in these last several years, really, but especially in the last year and a half, I'd say that the economy has been particularly just different trade winds. Like, you see some trends are going this way and some going that way, and it's very hard for people to predict that. And as a result of that, I see that hiring has slipped quite a bit. And I don't know if that's just my industry as much. Like, so I work in the mid-market ERP industry. It's the companies that either purchase and use or sell and implement enterprise resource planning softwares, which are called ERP softwares, which are the vascular system of a company. It's where IT meets accounting. And you typically, I'm finding that people who either implement those systems or develop on those systems, customize the systems, optimize the systems, sell those systems. I'm really working around people who are doing all of that. And in this industry, hiring has dropped off precipitously. And what I have found, at least my biggest challenge, especially in these last couple of years, has been the shift that we have needed to make, the rapidity of the changes and the shifting that we need to make in order to continue to be potent, viable, relevant. For instance, my staffing practice. So I have two different practices with DyNexus Recruiting Staffing. The recruiting practice is one, and the staffing practice is the other. And the staffing is essentially putting contractors on projects for clients, whereas recruiting is finding an individual who's going to be a full-time permanent employee of a company. So the recruiting has backed off quite a bit. Like, there's not nearly the amount of companies looking to hire at this moment that there was 2 years ago, and through the pandemic. Um, but staffing is as high as it ever has been, and it continues to moderately. It's not been an aggressive growth, but over the last year and a half, staffing for me has for DyNexus has grown consistently despite the pullbacks in the economy,
Hmm.
which is really interesting to me. So that's the challenge for me, really, is that so quickly how things are changing, and how and keeping relevant and keeping fresh. And that transition is fast, and that's the challenge.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, who was to say and predict what happened like in 2024 and 2025 is like the most wild. Every industry is seeing shakeups and good and bad and shifting. Basically, the earth underneath everyone's feet is shifting in some way. It's like a theme that we've seen. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking about like trends, like specifically, in the world of like AI being a trend, it wasn't really a thing in 2023. Like nobody really
Mhm.
had it on their phone. Now, pretty much everyone's got ChatGPT and they're using it in some capacity every day. And they're like, oh, it's so cool. I can get information super quick and have a deeper thought. But
Mhm.
as a business owner, how have you been like approaching or basically reviewing this new world that's kind of
I'd
starting?
say cautiously aggressively. How's that? Is that a possible word? That's kind of
Yes.
an oxymoron, isn't it? It's opposites each other. Um, so the cautious part has been that for me, I see trends in the industry, in professional world. Trends. People get on the bandwagon of things. And that bandwagon can make it look like it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread and it fixes all your problems. It's the perfect tool that will always make your life easy and never make it hard. And it's always works perfect. Like that's what you would think with all of the buzz that's going around about how AI has been helping so many industries, in my industry as a recruiter, how AI is making recruiting better. And I would say it certainly is. So I have no doubt about that, but I'm cautious because I also recognize I see a number of trends that are not popularly talked about. For example, I know a lot of job seekers who refuse to interview if it's not a real person because they are so sick of bots wasting their time on processes that are clunky or weird or end up being negative for the person, and they will write off companies that force them to interact with a system rather than a person
Right.
because it's soulless, because they feel like it's they get a very bad first impression if a person can't even take the time to take a moment and say hi, to do that. And I come from, my company has been like, that's the hallmark of my company, is like we are personal, like
Yeah.
we are person to person, and
You
that's
need this.
you do. And I don't think everybody needs it. I think there are some very professional, very successful companies that take the scaling approach to success, which is you can, you know, uh, optimize and hone yourself and use a ton of automation. Like if you're a recruiting company that does the contingent recruiting, which is like flinging the resumes at the wall, whereas you used to fling 60 resumes, now you can fling 600 resumes at the wall, right? And now instead of 50 customers, you can have the ear of like 500 customers. So with bots, with the use of automation in being able to do robodialing in the way of getting things out there, just the ways you can do, yes, you can do that. And people make a lot of money doing it, but what they're leaving behind them, the wake that they leave behind them, is something that is not nearly as interesting to people as the shiny object of being able to 10x your production and make a lot more money. But what you don't recognize is, what are you leaving behind? What is the reputation? How are people thinking of you? What is the experience that you are creating to the humans who you are interacting with? And that question is not one that's very talked about because it suffers. Um, so for that reason, I think AI is great. I use it. I used it so many times today, I can't even tell you. I was posting on LinkedIn and I used it. I created imagery I needed. I use it all the time. I create contracts with it. I create emails with it. I really do use it a lot. But at the same time, I don't yet. I mean, I don't use it for automating communication. Other than I write my own emails. For instance, if I have an email that's long and complicated, I want to write. I don't go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, this is the scenario, and write this for me." I write the copy of it, and then I take that and I drop it into ChatGPT and I say, "Hey, ChatGPT, optimize this for me, or make this better for me." And it can very often make better words than I
Mhm.
could have chosen, and it's great. And I pick it up, and it's brilliant. But it's mine to start with. And a
Yes.
lot of people, when they're creating content now, if they're not being gatekeepers, they're taking an idea and then allowing ChatGPT to, or any LLM, to build out and create it, and you can see it in the product. I put out a LinkedIn post this morning, and it was about well, I called it a hyphen, but it's the EM dash. Do you know what that is in English, where you have words and then you have a dash and then you have more words you could in a sentence? It's a totally fine thing to do, and ChatGPT uses it very, very well. But the problem is ChatGPT uses it all the time, way too much. And so what's easy to see is whenever you're out and someone sends you a LinkedIn message or they send you an email or whatever content you're reading, and you see all these little word dash word things being used, you know it's ChatGPT that wrote it. So
Tell.
so
You
it's
can
like,
tell.
you can tell these kind of things. So I'd say I'm optimistic about it, but I'm also cautious because of those things that people don't like to think about, which is what is the human, what's the human, what's the fallout from a human standpoint, an authentic connection standpoint? What are you doing with your brand when you are um, trusting over such important stuff as the delivery of your product? You got to be
Huge,
careful. Yeah.
huge. Aggressively cautious.
Mm. So yeah, that's the word, right?
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
no,
Cautiously
I would do it
aggressively.
the other way around.
Yes.
Cautiously aggressive. That's the word,
Yeah.
not aggressively
That's it.
cautious.
Yeah. Cautiously. Yes, exactly. And I would totally agree. Our viewpoint is the best automations are the ones you don't even know they're happening or that they happened. And you don't really get rid of this. It's just it happened, it processed, it did the thing, it pushed it through to the right person, whatever it is. Those automations are the best. That you
Yeah,
still know that there's still a heartbeat behind it or a heartbeat kind of at the soul of it. Yeah. Yes, exactly right. It's true.
yeah,
But it's a deep world because ChatGPT is just, yeah, like you said, LLM, it's the surface. It is just the surface, and there's a world beyond that.
yeah, yeah. That's true. This reminds me, Brandon, of one thing I used to do when I used to get phone calls. I could hear if it's a robocall usually. Like it was pretty good at it. And there were times when robocalls would get pretty darn good. But always the litmus test question was, hey, what's 2 plus 3? If you're a human, tell me what that is. And they would never be able to do it. And I could always get them out of the way. But nowadays, they answer the question and then they keep on selling.
They can. It's true. How many planets are in the solar system? I don't see how that's relevant, but I will answer the question. There are eight, and they'll
Maybe
keep
it's to ask a question like, if you're a human, what's 123 times 45? And if they can answer that quick, they're either like a math whiz or they're a bot, and it's probably a bot.
there it is. They're exactly. And you can program it either way. It's so fun. It's so unique. Well, Julian, you have a full day and you've definitely given some great value. Very, very much grateful to have you on the podcast. How can we get in touch with you?
Sure, Brandon. So anybody can get in touch. My company is DyNexus Recruiting and Staffing. My website, dynexusgroup.com, DYNEXUSGROUP.com. My email is Julian S. My last name is Schrenzel, Julian S at dynexusgroup.com. Phone number 206-466-1342 is my direct line. If anybody is looking for help with finding the kind of talent they need at the right time, that's what we do. We find the right talent at the right time when it's needed. We can do that on a full-time permanent basis. We can do that for contractors on an as-needed basis. But that's what we do, and we do it in the mid-market ERP and CRM worlds. And that's the best way to reach me.
Awesome. Awesome. Julian Schrenzel, thanks again for being a part of the podcast. If you guys got value out of this, please subscribe. This is the Valuable Mind podcast. Have a good day.
Thanks, Brendan.